What's up, y'all? Happy Sunday. The Secret Teachings of Jesus video from last night took a year to upload. I don't know why. So it's finally up. It's a part 2 of last week's episode. Ooh, hold on. That was Revelation coming out first. So we'll put that to the side. Let's see what else. So yes, the Secret Teachings of Jesus video uploaded. It is part 2 of last week's video. So if you haven't seen last week's, I would suggest watching that one first. I haven't edited the title to say part 1, but the part 2 does indicate part 2. So you can find that in the Secret Teachings of Jesus playlist. Studying the Gnostic Gospels from the Gospel of Philip. What else? Oh, the 2025 prediction series. So it's so funny. I'm such a fan of my own work. When I go back and listen to my own videos, like when I'm telling you guys these things, it's like I'm channeling, it's coming through, but I'm not necessarily remembering everything that I say. And so sometimes I can remember vaguely, but a lot of times I don't remember the full video. And so sometimes I watch the videos to get the message myself. And so I went back, even though it was a little late to watch March. I like my videos because there's always evergreen messages that are good anytime. Even though we are doing these readings that are speaking to the week, there's still this ongoing encouragement and direction for our ever unfolding story. And there's always evergreen wisdom about the secret teachings of Kabbalah and just general cosmic truth and all of that. Not to toot my own horn, it's not really me. I feel like I'm channeling the Holy Spirit. Although I don't like to kind of exploit the terms like I've got a prophetic word for y'all. You know, I feel like it gets a bit manipulating and spammy and clickbaity and all of that. So I take that very seriously. So I've always just said I'm an intuitive channel. And, you know, if it lands, you guys will feel the spirit that it comes from. But I was listening to March, and I had actually been struggling for a few days, just feeling really depressed and heavy, and it just felt, I don't know, it really comforted me and it uplifted me. And so the month-by-month readings, even though like I've listened to them after January, February, March, they were still all really helpful and gave you a lot of insight. And even looking back in hindsight gave me so much more context for what we've been going through. And they're still helpful and encouraging and great reminders and very refreshing. So if you are interested in the 2025 prediction series, you can find that in my description box below. It'll take you over to my Stan store. If you had trouble in the past with payments, it's because I wasn't able to integrate a credit card payment processor because I didn't have seller history through Stan. But after I got a couple of people who bought through PayPal, I was finally able to integrate Stripe. So that shouldn't be glitchy like it was. So you shouldn't have any trouble. It's $10. It's a one-time payment. It's not like a subscription. It's just a one-time purchase. And so if you purchase it, you will get in your email a link to a private playlist on YouTube that has an extensive yearly overview and a Celtic cross reading with also channeled messages like we do in our lunation workshops and our full moon and new moon. I talk and then we do cards, same format there. I do use different decks in these videos that you guys aren't used to me using in our normal content. And under each video, there are corresponding journal questions that will help you align your consciousness, workshop through the general themes and challenges and opportunities that are coming up that are addressed in each video. There's also seasonal readings that correlate with winter, spring, summer, and fall, and that is all collected into one long video. And then each season has its own set of journal questions below the video in the video description box. And then there are monthly readings that go into the specifics and depth of the month, which have been amazing. I've really been enjoying them. I'm a huge fan of myself. And those have journal questions also. So I'm really proud of it. I think it's a great tool to give you context and direction and make you feel at least on purpose through the year, even though we can't control what happens. And a lot of times we can't fully anticipate what's happening, but we can prepare ourselves for certain rhythms and themes that are going to be presenting. So I think it's a really useful tool. I think it's a good way to have the most fulfilling year possible and help you stay flexible through these ever-changing times. I know in the beginning of the year, I went to a lecture about this year's astrology, and the astrologer pointed out that we had not had this level of like planetary movements and aspects since like the dawn of language in mankind. It is that crazy this year. So I think it's a very useful tool for you to have throughout the year, and you can keep going back and referencing and have those monthly readings through the year. So it's really worth it. It's only $10. I tried to make it as accessible as possible. If you go out anymore, $10 is less than a combo meal at a fast food restaurant. It is less than the tip you're going to pay when you go out to the bar. So I think it's a really good deal, and it's a good way to support the channel if you come here and you like the material. All right, so our first card out is Revelation. Now, I believe that we have been going through a lot of tests and trials recently. That's part of Pisces season usually, generally, because Pisces season is the end of our elemental year. So we're wrapping up. It's like final exam season, and we do a deep dive during that time to really do the introspection, to round off the last 12 months and to offload ourselves of any lingering blocks holding us back, any lingering emotional baggage and spiritual baggage. And, we're presented with tests to see if we're going to fall into the same old temptations, if we're going to react the same way, if we've really grown, if we really learn our lesson, or if we need to keep experiencing these tests again and again and again. And we are in the midst of Mercury retrograde, Venus retrograde, where we're going back and we're rethinking things. We're in the midst of eclipse season, right? So, and then we're also in the middle of the 40 days of Lent, which is a time that we connect to the time where Jesus was in the desert for 40 days fasting and preparing himself as the sacrificial lamb that would be sacrificed for the Jewish people and to save all of our souls come Passover. When Jesus was crucified and there was the Last Supper, that was the Passover Seder supper. And so that was during Passover. And so during Passover, to prepare for Passover, they would bring in a spotless, perfect lamb, and they would bring it into the house to keep it clean, and they would anoint the lamb's feet. So when the woman washed Jesus's hair with the spikenard, the perfume, and her hair, that was an act not only preparing his body for burial, but anointing his feet as the sacrificial lamb that would be slaughtered to pay for the redemption of the souls of all mankind who would ever believe in him. And so those 40 days in the wilderness correspond with the 40 days or 40 years that the Israelites were in the wilderness after the Exodus. And so Jesus was tempted by Satan 3 times in the wilderness, with, hey, why don't you just take over the kingship? People want you to be the king, take over and throw Herod off the throne. You don't have to go through this horrible torture. You don't have to murder yourself. You can actually be in power and be the greatest king that ever lived. And so too, are we tempted during this time to go back to the old ways or to take the easier way out, to give up on our dreams, to give up on our calling, to give up on the soul work that we're doing, right? How many people, are trying to give up an addiction or break an old habit or an old way of thinking or being in the world. And it's so hard not to fall back and just be like, what's the point? It's not worth it, especially in the year that we're facing this year. I mean, everywhere you look, everything's just so terrifying and heavy, and it just only seems to get worse and worse. I remember at the beginning of the year, everybody was scared of the aliens, and now we're like, please come and get us. Please just help us, right? So, it's this opening in this window of time where it's not just this, thoughtful fast that we do to participate and be good Christians. This is a cosmic window that is open these times of year when the saints or patriarchs or prophets die, and during their birthdays and their death dates. Those are times where we can connect with that person, with that sage, with that prophet, especially Jesus, right? This time is so powerful because even if we're not participating, it's like that presence, that influence, just like the astrological influences are all over the world right now. And so having going through this time, it brings us this special connection to insights. Like if we're really doing the restriction and participating in the fast and giving something up and putting ourselves through sacrifice and, discipline and restraining from something, then that opens us up to these revelations and insights and awarenesses, and it frees us, it liberates us from Egypt, right? When the Israelites left Egypt, the Egypt represents our ego, the hold that our lower carnal instincts, our fleshly instincts, our fears, our insecurities, our lusts, our greed, our addictions have on us, the things that like control us and hold us so that we're not really using our free will, we're not using our own sovereignty. This is a time where we break free from that and we leave that behind. But only a small percentage of the Israelites actually left slavery because they didn't know what was ahead of them. They didn't know what to expect. They were just going into this no man's land, into this wilderness, and they didn't know how they'd be taken care of or how they would get by. And so a lot of them just stayed in Egypt because they were like, well, we have stability here. It's not great, but at least we're alive. At least we're not starving to death, And so many of them didn't go. And that is exactly the secret of the matzah. The reason why the matzah is a flat bread is because it wasn't leavened. It didn't have time to rise. They only had 18 minutes to get out, so they had to take the bread with them before it had time to rise. Now, what that really means is that when God gives you this inspiration to do something, this guidance, right? When you've got this conviction that comes over and you're like, oh, I feel really led to do this thing or not to do this thing or to quit this thing. You have to do it quick before your ego comes in and starts justifying, starts talking you out of it, starts making you afraid, starts making you ask questions, and you get confused and insecure. That's the veil, right, that keeps us separate from that perfect union with God. When we know, like, oh, I hear this voice, I know everything's going to be okay, I'm going to be immediately, I'm just going to do this thing, I know the time is now. So when we hear that spiritual voice coming in from our soul, or when we feel that presence that compels us, and then we know that that's not just our ego, that's not our fear talking, but that's something we're led to do, you have to do it quick. It's called being spiritually lazy, when you're slow to act on things, and then you think, oh, I'll do that, but you never get around to it because you've justified yourself out of it. You've talked yourself out of it. The ego confuses you and it sends you in another direction. So you have to act quickly, right? Because that's the only way you're going to be able to leave, because you've got a short window to get away from that ego before it talks you out of what you were supposed to do. So the revelation, we're probably going to have revelatory insights and breakthroughs this week. So give yourself time to pay attention to those things. We've really been led to sit in stillness and open ourselves up to meditation recently. And that's an ongoing theme that we had all last week. And I haven't made the time, even for myself, to sit in that quiet meditation. Although I'm kind of constantly always in kind of prayer and listening and communicating with God, it's still not the same as taking 15 to 20 to 30 minutes to sit really in stillness and go deep with the breath and get yourself solid and settled in. And even just the breathing, like try it without a guided meditation. Try it and just quiet. And I do like classical music, because you're not thinking of the lyrics. The lyrics aren't making you visualize anything. It's not subliminally influencing you in any way into any narrative. And then a lot of times the guided meditations, although those are good, they have an agenda that they're trying to train your mind on to help you with the discipline. But if you really want to open up to this spontaneous divine inspiration, revelation that's going to come through, quiet, silence, stillness is the best, or with classical music. We have support, which I think it's interesting. The spinal column is depicted here with knockout roses. Knockout roses are very hardy. They're really hard to get rid of. They grow prolifically. They bloom like crazy, but they're not too fickle. They're really hard and really tough and really strong, prolific growing bushy roses. So I think that in our resilience, in our strength, in our tenacity, we will bloom and we will blossom and we will grow like weeds, and it's going to be hard to get rid of us. And the thing about the rose is that it symbolizes the process of an Israelite. The Israelite is not necessarily someone from Israel. It's someone who makes their consciousness, makes their vessel like the light of the Creator. They do the soul correction, they do the inner work because they want to make themselves have affinity with the light of the Creator and share the consciousness of the Creator and become like that and die to their lower self. But with that comes, the thorns of life. But there's also blossoms and blooms and beauty too. And so it's a combination of both. And we can proactively grow, and that helps us bypass a lot of pain and chaos and suffering. But pain is unavoidable, and usually, when we're satisfied and we think that we're A-okay and everything's all right, we're not proactively pushing ourselves to grow outside of our comfort zone. We might have our routines and everything, but we don't really go deep until we have something that's hurting us, that we're like, oh, the pain is so great that I can't stand it. Whether it's loneliness or sickness, or you're tired of the environment that you're in, or, it's like you're getting to your boiling point with this. It's like usually until we are so exhausted with our situation that we have to get to a breaking point. We have to be broken in order to finally say enough is enough and to truly change. But if you start to mature spiritually, you see the value of that proactive change. And once you can shift into that mode, you don't need the pain and the chaos anymore to encourage you towards growth. That's where real wisdom starts to grow, when you can proactively ask the Creator, to make you stronger, to make you more sensitive and more compassionate, to make you wiser, to make you give you more certainty and more, a deeper, stronger faith and more endurance, more perseverance to push yourself out of that comfort zone. So really relying on that prayer practice and that meditation, I think, because the spine always reminds me of meditation. It's like you're sitting, and it's the pineal gland or the pineal gland. When you're in meditation, it starts to open up. And if you can decalcify your pineal gland, then you're really opened up and you have this inner vision, and you have a stronger sense of discernment of knowing, okay, what's good, what's bad, what's the right way, what's the wrong way. It's like you get this clairsentience that comes from it, where you have this clarity and a certainty that's guiding you, and you are more connected to that inner vision. And you can even experience having visualizations or inner vision more vividly. So once that is open and you tap into that in meditation, and you're sitting for a certain amount of time doing the breath work, you start to secrete, I can't remember what the chemical is called in your brain, but it's referred to in the metaphysical language and ancient wisdom as the sacred secretion. And so it starts to flow down your spinal column and it starts to activate your chakral systems. And so it's a very powerful process in your body that leads to enlightenment, into revelation. So I think that the greatest thing that's going to support our mental health and our inner peace is a regular practice of prayer and meditation. And then, keeping a dream journal, doing automatic writing, that's going to help you tap into your subconscious. But dude, my dreams have been so vivid the past month. They've just been crazy. Some have been pleasant, some have been strange, and some have been downright chilling and very nerve-wracking and very prophetic. In fact, I had a dream. It was so long and so drawn out, but it had to do with like these lions that were prowling everywhere. And then it was like there was the scene. It was like the Wild West, right? And think about the Wild West was lawless. That's what it feels like. We're living in this time where it just feels like the law is just being scoffed at, and it feels like things are lawless. And the lions, I woke up and I kept hearing Joe March from Little Women say, the lions of injustice. I'm taking on the lions of injustice. And there was like something about this taxidermied black cat, and it was like the independence is dead, and it was like something about feminine power and feminine independence. And sure enough, it really, really scared me. And then it was like a couple of days later, I saw somebody post something about Marco Rubio taking women out of the Human Rights Report, along with disabled people, LGBTQ, and it was so disturbing. I don't know what the Human Rights Report is, but I mean, the writing's on the wall. So it was so strange and such a chilling feeling to have that dream, be really concerned about women's independence especially, and then see that article, or at least the post about the article. I didn't read the article because I'm already like struggling with the depression. So it's like, okay, well, I know the nightmare is playing out, I don't really want to marinate in it, So yeah, just a struggle to know what to do during these times, honestly. You have to, this is why the work that I'm doing with you guys is so important, because I am here trying to help you get in touch with that inner voice, to get in touch with the inner work that's going to clear your ability to discern and navigate through increasingly unstable and uncertain times. Okay, what do we have? Oh, the sacral chakra. This is so prominent this year in the 2025 prediction series. This comes up so often. Our sacral chakra is the chakra that is connected to the dream world, the astral realm. So this connects us with that psychic instinct. The sacral chakra is associated with our reproductive glands, reproductive organs. And so this is the gateway of life and death through this world. This is also associated with the Sphirot on the tree of life. Hold on, let me get our chart. Chart is here. So this right here, this is the dimension that is the neighboring dimension from our physical existence. So the very next dimension over from us is the dream world, is the astral realm. This is where souls enter and leave the world. This is where all blessings flow through and everything comes into manifestation. This is like the last stop from the upper realms, and this is the flow from like the storehouse of blessings down to the material manifestation, the material existence. So this is where like entities are, and you might have heard of thought forms. Like when we have imaginations about things, it like creates these thought forms in this realm. So like for instance, on earth when we all have these imaginary archetypes that we think of. They become these things in this other space. So like the things that you think of in your mind, it's not harmless. It's actually creating something in another realm. So harmless fantasy is not exactly harmless fantasy. You are kind of violating another person if you are thinking about them in an unsavory way. So keeping this realm clear so that you are connected with your blessings and with the flow. Everything flows from here. So where we store our shame and our guilt is in this chakra, and it can create blocks in the flow of what we can and are able to manifest. At the same time, for activating this chakra, it really enhance our psychic instincts and our intuition and our nightly dreams. This is where we have our creativity and where our creativity comes from. And so it's important that we keep this chakra healthy and open and active, because so much is connected to it. The flow of our blessings, the flow of our creativity, our fertility, our sex drive. The water is associated with this element, so water healing can help. I like to, pray in the shower and do a lot of visualization in the shower. But also if you take ritual baths, having prayer and affirmations and chanting in the shower and then the bathtub, even taking healing herbs and aromatherapy, making your baths special and centering them around your sacred ritual time and healing. I always think that those are very effective. All right. Think about baptism, right? The rite of baptism. Ooh, and stability. Wow, we have support and stability here this week. So really putting your mind and your efforts into, the wise man builds his house upon the rock, right? When we rely on outside sources to sustain us, that is very precarious, because anything can change at any moment, right? Your job can change. The flow of your work can change. I know this year, I've noticed, even though I find my job is fairly stable compared to being a freelancer in the film industry, I'm a server now at a dinner restaurant. Even though I do make more stable and better money than I did when I was in the freelance world, it still, fluctuates. And what I've noticed about 2025 is that half the people that we serve are Republicans. And you can tell who they are because you get to listen to their conversations. And so it's pretty evident usually right away who your Democratic leaning tables and independent tables are and who your Republican tables are. And it's pretty obvious and consistent that the Republicans are tipping less because they're under the assumption that we're not getting taxed on our tips, which is absolutely not true. We are definitely getting taxed on our tips. And so, just even relying on your job as your source is precarious. And so, look at all the people that have government jobs, and they went after those government jobs because they thought, oh, government job is so solid, right? It's so guaranteed. It's always going to be there. There's always going to need, and a lot of people didn't follow their dreams because they were like, well, I'd rather do something stable. I'd rather have a guarantee. Even like teachers, right? Look at teachers right now. It's horrible to watch all of these things happen and all these people getting laid off. And so one thing that Kabbalah has taught me, and the Kabbalah Center always emphasizes, is that we get in trouble when we look outside in the physical world as our source. But what we really need to see, because that's the vessel, right? Whenever we talk about the vessel and the light, everything that we seek energy from is just a vessel. It's just an empty husk, And the light and the energy that we draw from it are little sparks of light from the Creator. Now, when we get hung up on the vessel, that is where it gets dangerous. That's where it gets precarious. That's where we start idolizing the thing. And what we really need to understand is that it's the Creator that is our source, right? Even in the wilderness, the Israelites had no food, but they were given manna from the sky. It came as a miracle. In my life, like, there are certain sages and prophets that went as far as to say, I'm going to eat only when the Creator sends me food. And they would randomly, spontaneously be provided with food. Well, I mean, as a single woman, it's very expensive to pay my bills by myself, and do all that and still have hair products and dress, myself and have all of these things and take care of all my needs. And so a lot of times I have to really skim down on my food budget, but I work at a made from scratch restaurant. And so a lot of times there's leftover food that we don't sell at the end of the night. And so the Creator provides me with food many times. Sometimes when we don't have a lot of leftovers at the restaurant and they're trying to prevent waste, literally God has sent me hauls of mushrooms from the forest that I forage spontaneously. The mushrooms literally talk to me. They're like, we're out here, come find us. And then I'll look out the window and they'll be on the tree, 50 feet into the wood line. And I'm like, oh my God, there's jelly-eared mushrooms. Oh my God, I gotta go forage them. Sometimes I just have a feeling that I should go into the woods that day, and I get a haul of oysters, right? You need to be careful about foraging mushrooms because you could poison yourself. But if you cross-reference your mushrooms and you learn how to identify certain ones, and what mushrooms are poisonous in your area, and then the lookalikes for the edible mushrooms, you do a lot of cross-referencing, you can kind of learn how to forage them. Fortunately, in this area, there's not a lot of poisonous mushrooms that also look like jelly ears or oysters, so it's fairly safe, but it can be dangerous. And even still, sometimes when you find the edible mushrooms, you need to do the research, because some of them need to be prepared a certain way so they don't make you sick. So, having said that, you don't want to get hung up on the vessel. You want to understand that the light is your source. God is your source. And so in our prayer and meditation, then in our receiving of this guidance, we realize that God is our source, that God is guiding us, that God is providing for us, that God is protecting us, right? There's a psalm, I think, because in my church growing up, all of our songs were coming from the Psalms. And there's a song that we used to sing called, it would go, God is my refuge and my strength. And I sometimes I don't remember the whole song, but sometimes I'll just get these bits and pieces of these songs and I just start singing them. Because, when I start thinking about the world and thinking, wow, who is going to protect me? No one's out there. And I'm like, well, God protects me and my angels protect me. And no one's providing for me but myself. And so I'm like, well, no, it's not up to my own strength, and it's not up to my job, and it's not my tables that are providing for me. God's providing for me. And, even down to feeling like you're enslaved by the algorithm. If you're a content creator, it's just the demand and you get every other post is something about someone going, and this is not how you go viral, this is how you go viral. And it's just at a certain point, it's God takes you viral. God will make me viral. God is my PR person. God is my content idea creator. I have nothing on my own. I'm an empty sleeve. I'm a meat suit. I have my spirit, I have my soul, but that's given to me by God, and it's a piece of God. And so I'm here expressing that for the purpose of bringing that light into the world. Going on, there used to be a time where I wanted to make movies, and I was really good at writing screenplays and coming up with really interesting ideas about screenplays. But ultimately, it was around the same time that I started doing spiritual work and spiritual studies and learning about healing and all of these things. And I was equally interested in that. It started to kind of pull me in two directions. And then I realized, I was like, these movies that I want to make, they're not going to change anyone's heart and soul. And even if they do, it takes so many years and so much trial and error and blood, sweat, and tears to even get the screenplay sold or get a movie funded. And by then, it's like the whole Hollywood, all the producers want to get in and water down your idea because they don't want to pursue their own idea. They just want to throw their own idea in. Their ideas suck. They have no creativity. They have no talent. They're the money people. And so then you're like, well, okay, here's my idea. I fought blood, sweat, and tears to get it made. Now it's watered down. Now it's going to be Hollywoodized and sexualized and it's going to be a miracle if it reaches anyone, and it'll go to like an independent theater and like maybe a few women will see it in the afternoon one day. And then, and if it doesn't get nominated for an Oscar, then it just falls into obscurity. It's just another thumbnail on the menu where you're like, what is that movie? And you never watch it, right? So I was like, wow, for all that, I could just make my own content that started to become more popular, and nothing holds me back. I can just get on here anytime I want to, tell you what I want, not overthink it, not over edit it. Nothing's stopping me. Nothing's getting in the way. It's not cumbersome. And so I realized that, that career, it became very unfulfilling. There was no meaning. There was no purpose. I wasn't sharing the light. I wasn't sharing a message that would inspire or change anyone's life. And then I got sick of working on set. Like, I used to have fun doing it. It used to be something unique, and it would, be a lot of variety and different things all the time. But then it just got to the point where it was like the stuff that I was working on didn't have any meaning or any value either, and it just felt empty and egoic. And even though this is thankless and I'm just a server and I'm just a YouTuber with hardly, any views on my videos, I feel fulfilled, and I feel like I'm doing something that is my calling, and that I'm doing something that's in service to other people and hopefully in service to God. And that's my intention. And because of that, I'm very fulfilled in what I do. Sometimes I get tired and discouraged, but I do feel like what I do has a purpose and serves a purpose. And so that gives me strength to keep going. And so it also has strengthened my faith and my certainty that the Creator, God, is my provider. God is my stability. God is my strength. And what I want to be here for is to share that with other people, because so many people have been alienated by the church and alienated by organized religion and traumatized in many cases and hurt very badly. And I don't want those people to go without that same feeling of stability and faith and connection, and that feeling of being watched over and guided and loved and provided for. I want to share that with others too. And just because they sense that there's something sinister going on, and this twistedness that's come upon organized religion, it's really always been there. They're the sheep, right, that the shepherd goes and grabs, and so I'm here for the black sheep. I'm here for the purple sheep. I'm here for the tie-dyed sheep. I'm here for the ones that went kind of off to the cliffside and kind of went over the edge. But you know what? Those edge walkers are the ones that can cling to those steep rocks, and they can go to high places, right? Because they want the truth, and they can recognize the truth. And that's why they left. They left the flock because they knew there was something false going on, and they knew that wasn't the whole truth. But I think that right now, what the most miraculous thing that I'm seeing out in the world is so many non-believers are actually saying, no, wait, this isn't Jesus, the real Jesus. We recognize the real Jesus. And so it's actually serving to glorify God in the end anyway. And I think that's really cool. In the midst of all of this, so hanging in there. All right, you guys, Revelation, support, sacral chakra, and stability. I like these cards for the week. I like them a lot. Whenever I'm belching, it feels like that's always when the channeling is happening. It's like the spirits are moving. I'm not just a belcher. All right, y'all. Well, I hope this serves you well. I hope you have a lovely rest of your night. If you're watching this at night, your day, your week ahead. And on our next video, we will be doing our anchor message where we receive our spiritual lessons and themes for the week. All right, till then, ciao, peace.